I'm Marina Araujo. I'm 33 years old, a cybersecurity analyst who spent more time debugging strangers' data breaches than talking to my own family. I was born the second child in a house that only had room for one favorite, my older brother Dominic, the golden boy, the heir, the one who could do no wrong. While he basked in attention and applause, I taught myself silence, learned to disappear, and got good at protecting things no one cared about. Until Dad died, and suddenly everything he left behind had my name on it. I always knew my family had secrets, but I didn't expect the first one to arrive in a PDF labeled Mutual Inheritance Agreement, or the part where my own mother tried to erase me with a signature. Funny how the people who taught you to play nice are the same ones holding the knife when the game turns real. The email came at 6:07 a.m. Subject: family discussion immediate. The body was short, polite, and cold enough to frost my screen. Marina, we'd like to meet for dinner. The Meridian, 7 p.m. Just us. Let's talk about this date. For everyone's peace of mind. Mom. CC Dominic. No blind copies. No attempt to soften it. Just an address and a silent warning buried under pleasantries. I didn't answer. Instead, I clicked the PDF attached. A legal document blinked to life. Mutual agreement of inheritance, realignment. Language too formal, too structured for anything casual. It wasn't a conversation. It was a demand wrapped in legalese. Clause 2 was underlined in blue. Primary beneficiary, Marina Araujo, agrees to reallocate 85% of assets into shared family trust. 85%. The inheritance Dad left me. The condo in La Jolla. His retirement accounts. His shares in the security firm he built. All marked for redistribution under a clause I'd never heard of. Nothing about it was mutual. I kept scrolling. Clause 9b. Failure to comply within 10 business days may trigger legal review of the original will and freeze all disbursements. Freeze. They were trying to block what was already mine. Not through court. Through fear. I forwarded the file to Jonathan Lee Riches, Dad's old attorney. His auto-reply came back instantly. Out of office. Temporarily unreachable. No further estate matters will be handled through this channel. Gone. A tightness pulled behind my ribs. I checked my phone. A new message from Dominic. This doesn't have to be messy, but if you push, it will be. He always did prefer the threat after the smile. By noon, I had skimmed the document 5 times and memorized every clause. I had questions, real ones, but I knew one thing for sure. This wasn't grief. This was strategy. Isabella never cried at the funeral. She performed. Long black dress, oversized sunglasses, whispering to neighbors about Dad's private struggles, as if she hadn't divorced him 10 years ago. Dominic gave a speech that didn't mention me once. He just said, "My father believed in legacy. That's what this is about." Legacy. What they really meant was control. At 5:48 p.m., I stood in front of my bedroom mirror. I pulled my hair back into a clean knot. Navy blouse, no jewelry. Practical. Professional. Cold enough to match the room I was walking into. My bag was light. Just my wallet, a printed copy of the PDF, and a single flash drive containing everything Dad ever sent me. Emails, photos, encrypted messages he used to leave like breadcrumbs. Just in case. At 6:05 p.m., I was already on the I-5, heading north toward Newport. Halfway through the drive, I passed the turnoff to Dad's old condo. The lights were still off. I couldn't bring myself to sell it yet. It still smelled like coffee and soldering iron, like code and cinnamon. At 6:41 p.m., I parked across the street from the Meridian. My fingers hovered over my phone. I didn't call anyone. No one to call. At 6:59 p.m., I stepped into the marble lobby. The host greeted me by name. "Private room in the back," she said. "They're already seated." Already. I followed her down a narrow hallway. My heels sounded too loud on the tile. The air was too still. At the end of the corridor, a glass door. Frosted. Closed. Soundless. She reached for the handle. I stopped her. I've got it. She nodded, vanished. I stood there, breathing once. Twice. Then opened the door. They were all there. Isabella, sitting straight backed at the head of the table, wearing black like it was still the funeral. Dominic, arms crossed, half smiling like he already won. Gavin Cole, the family friend who once taught me how to fake confidence in court, now flanked by a silver laptop and a leather binder. No menus, no wine, just 3 water glasses and a thick folder centered in front of the empty chair they had saved for me. I sat without speaking. Isabella's lips curved. You made it. Dominic nodded. We just want to talk. Gavin reached into the folder and slid a pen across the table. We thought it'd be easier this way, he said. No lawyers. No mess. I didn't pick up the pen. Instead, I looked at the 3 of them, one by one. Mom, brother, ghost of a mentor. They looked back like they were doing me a favor. I breathed in through my teeth. If you don't come, the email had said, we'll make the decision without you. I closed my eyes, then smiled. Not a chance in hell. The air in the private dining room felt engineered. Too quiet, too still, like even the temperature had been preset to neutralize confrontation. My heels touched down on the carpeted floor with a silence that only made the tension louder. 3 place settings, 1 folder, no menus. Dominic looked at me like I was already halfway to agreeing. Mom didn't stand. Gavin, the outsider with a family grin, tapped his pen once before speaking. Thank you for coming, Marina. We wanted this to be civil. I leaned back slightly. That's why you picked a room with no windows. Isabella's fingers flexed on the tablecloth. It's a family matter. We didn't want distractions. I'm wide awake now, I said. Go on. Gavin opened the folder. As mentioned in the email, this is a prearranged mutual agreement to revise the estate. Mutual. I smiled, but it didn't reach my eyes. Isn't it funny how people only say mutual when they want something unearned? He slid a pen toward me like it was a dessert fork. We're not asking you to give up everything, just a fair redistribution. Dominic will receive what your father would have wanted if he were thinking clearly in those final months. I didn't touch the pen. My father was more lucid than anyone at this table. Let's not do this, Dominic said, shifting in his chair. We all know he was fading. Funny, I said. He still remembered your suspended real estate license and that crypto debt you tried to bury in Nevada. The temperature dropped. Mom's voice sliced through. Enough. This isn't about digging up mistakes. No, I said. It's about burying the truth. Gavin cleared his throat, changing tactics. We have. Supporting documentation. A signed addendum. Your father made it clear Dominic was to be co-beneficiary. For balance. Balance. They said it like it was a virtue, not a correction to someone else's crime. He turned the folder so I could see. Paper clipped to the agreement was a grainy photo. Dad, sitting in his old recliner, holding a pen to a yellow legal pad. The date was 2 weeks before he died. They were betting on optics. I stared, then zoomed in with my eyes. His left hand was tucked into his sweater. Wrong. My father's right hand had tremors. But here, he was signing with it like nothing had changed. I tilted my head. Cute. Who forged it? Let me guess. It wasn't Dominic. He never passed cursive. Dominic's jaw twitched. You're being paranoid. Gavin's voice tried to stay smooth. There's no need for accusations. We'd prefer not to make this formal. I smiled. I brought my own copy of the will. The real one. Mom's eyes flickered. I reached into my bag and laid down a sealed envelope. Red wax. Initials engraved. R.A. Dad's old habit. The last revision, I said. Certified, notarized, time-stamped. No amendments. No brother. Just me. Gavin paled slightly. You're bluffing. I slid the envelope forward. Open it. No one moved. For a second, all you could hear was the soft hum of the AIC and the metallic clink of Gavin's wedding ring tapping the table. Then the signal dropped. My phone's screen blacked out. I tapped it. No response. Dominic stood up. Enough games. I stood too. If you want a war, fine. But don't pretend you brought wine to a wake and called it peace. Isabella spoke again. Her tone shifted. Sharper. Calculated. If you sign now, Marina, we can resolve this before things get costly. Define costly. Gavin leaned in. Probate freeze. Court delays. Your credit. Your assets. Everything gets locked until this is resolved. I blinked. You're threatening me with legal ruin because I won't hand over what's legally mine. Dominic's grin surfaced again. It's not a threat if it's true. I looked at them, one by one. Gavin, too careful. Dominic, too smug. Isabella, too calm. That's when it hit me. They thought they'd already won. They weren't negotiating. They were counting minutes until I broke. But they forgot something my father taught me. The first person to raise their voice is usually the one losing the argument. So I stayed quiet. Then I reached for my bag, pulled out the flash drive, and placed it flat on the table. Here's what happens next, I said. No one spoke. I looked at each of them, my voice steady. You forged his name. You staged a trap. Now I want to know who else is in on this. The second I got home, I locked the door, dropped my bag, and went straight for the laptop. No music, no lights, just the screen and the pounding pulse in my ears. I plugged in the flash drive. Empty. Not corrupted, wiped. Like someone had known what was on it and made damn sure I wouldn't see it again. The backup? Same result. No video. No files. Just blank space. I sat back, heart jackhammering in my chest. You don't erase the truth unless you're scared of who finds it. Cut. I opened my VPN tunnel, rerouted my IP through a dead node in Colorado, and pulled up the metadata from the PDF Gavin gave me. Legal files always leave fingerprints, timestamps, user IDs, hidden comments buried in the doc's XML code. And there it was. Last edited 3 days ago. Not from Gavin's firm. Not from my mother's home network. From a proxy masked behind a shell domain. onyxjuryuplLC.com. Registered 2 months ago in Orange County. I kept digging. The domain was linked to one address. A luxury condo tower downtown. One of the units belonged to Gavin Cole. So much for family friend. 3 tabs open. A map. An old floor plan of Gavin's place from a real estate listing. And his LinkedIn profile where he bragged about digital security protocols and estate privacy. I cracked his home's router ID in 8 minutes. He hadn't changed the admin password. It was still Cole 1977. People who hide the most are always the ones who think they're untouchable. I tapped into his home security hub. For cameras, 1 audio channel. The screen loaded slow, like it knew it shouldn't be doing this. Then footage. 2 nights ago. Timestamp, 2:13 a.m. Isabella, in his office, wearing black. No jewelry. Hair tied up like she was going to war. Audio was shaky but clear enough. She leaned in close. If she won't sign, we make her. You said she's alone, make her feel it. Gavin didn't answer, just nodded slow. She tapped a folder on his desk. Not labeled. No markings. She whispered, that's the copy. The one Dominic edited. It has to look clean. I screen recorded the entire clip. Cut. Phone buzzed. Unknown number. I didn't answer. Let it go to voicemail. Then checked the security feed from my own condo. Motion alert. Back door sensor triggered. 3 minutes ago. I froze. The alert expanded. Camera feed black. Static. Someone had disabled it. I grabbed the small emergency drive taped under my desk and bolted from the chair. Didn't grab shoes. Just keys, laptop, phone. Out the door. Down the stairs. 3 at a time. The night was cold and open and too quiet. I drove for 15 minutes without looking back. Stopped in a parking garage near the airport. Checked my phone again. Nothing. No alerts. No texts. Not even the voicemail from earlier. Everything was quiet. Too quiet. In the back seat of my car, I reconnected to my server. Pulled the logs from my home network. Login attempt, 11:17 p.m. Location, external device. Port access override. Device ID flagged under an old connection name. DOM_laptop_01. He used to bring it to Dad's office to print job applications. He never changed the name. Then came the twist. The hospital's guest Wi-Fi network. Dad's last place before hospice had a login to Dad's cloud drive. 2 days after he died. Not accessed by me. Not by Jonathan. By someone else. Someone using a spoofed device signature, masked by a generic name. System_temp_admin. I tried to reverse the mask. It pinged back once. IP match, Dominic Serrano. It was never about the will. It was about access. Control. Ownership of a legacy he was never promised. I opened the voicemail. Dominic's voice, lazy and smooth. Still playing hacker? Hope you find something. Just know, whatever you dig up, we're already ahead of you. Click. And then silence. I stared at the screen. At the cloud folder I'd tried to protect. At the drive that was now just a hollow vault. And then I saw it. Last modified yesterday. Folder name, RA Final Clause. Inside one single file. Not a legal doc. Not a will. A scanned image of my father's handwritten note. If this is being read, it means I misjudged who would protect her. My fingers shook. I traced the bottom corner. A faint watermark. JLR 6. Jonathan Lee Riches. My father left the real proof with him. And someone in my family already tried to steal it. She clicked open the last access log and the IP matched one name. Not Dominic. Not Gavin. It was her mother. She was inside his account. The morning after the voicemail, I didn't go home. I checked into a cheap motel off Harbor Boulevard under an alias, Cassie Rains. Cash only. No digital footprint. The kind of place where no one asked questions and the sheets smelled like bleach and cigarettes. By 6:12 a.m., I had 3 screens open. One was my old laptop, wiped clean but still functional for forensic scanning. One was a burner tablet I used only when I was in a corner. The last was a direct connection into a hidden partition of my father's personal cloud. The file with his note. If this is being read, it means I misjudged who would protect her. Wasn't just sentimental. It was locked behind a hash key. 6 characters. 2 levels of encryption. And a delay trigger. If someone entered the wrong code 3 times, it would self-delete permanently. Dad always said, the people who fight the hardest to control the story usually have the most to hide. Cut scene. I checked the access logs again. The IP that matched my mother's device hadn't just visited the cloud. It had tried the code. Twice. She didn't guess wrong. She was searching for something. And that meant she didn't have it yet. Good. But she was close. Too close. At 7:40 a.m., I drove to AMC Capital Advisors, Gavin's office. I parked a block away, stepped out in a hoodie, ball cap, and black sneakers, faceless in a world of morning rush. From across the street, I watched him walk in, coffee in hand, too casual for a man who helped forge a signature and dismantle an estate. I walked past the building once, counted cameras, 3 on the exterior, 2 in the lobby. At the alley, a side entrance. Card reader access only. I waited. 7 minutes later, a young intern stepped outside for a smoke. She propped the door with a trash can. I slipped in behind her before it closed. Inside, the hallway smelled like carpet glue and ambition. I kept my head down, passed 2 copy rooms, and turned into the records department. Empty. The room was cold, lit by overhead fluorescents that buzzed like they had secrets. On the wall, a metal file cabinet labeled Legacy Files. I scanned. My last name, Araujo, was there. Drawer locked. Not a problem. A thin, flathead screwdriver and tension pick for my keychain, and click. Inside a folder. Manila. Titled Addendum File Client RA. I opened it. Not just one copy of the forged signature. 3. Different iterations. Different dates. One with notes in red pen. Gavin's handwriting. And a post-it. Final version signed by ISA. Use only if Marina refuses. My stomach tightened. They planned for my refusal before I even got the email. I took pictures. Every page. Then I spotted a second document underneath. Bank routing forms. 2 offshore accounts. Cayman Islands. Both under shell companies. One listed Dominic Serrano as a signatory. The other was blank. Always leave space for the next betrayal. Footsteps outside. I slid the folder back, shut the drawer, and turned. Gavin was in the doorway. You shouldn't be here. His voice was flat. No panic. Just disappointment. I kept my phone at my side, thumb on the record button. I could say the same. He stepped in, closed the door behind him. The latch clicked loud. We stared each other down. You know what you're doing, he said, but you're making it harder for everyone. That's the point, I said. You lied for them. You helped them cover up fraud. His expression didn't change. I protected your family. What happens next, Marina, is on you. I stepped closer. Then tell me this. Why did my mother try to access a file that only my father and I knew existed? His face shifted. Not surprise. Resignation. He looked at me. Not with hate. With pity. She loved him, he said, even when he didn't love her back. The air went still. You mean the affair? His silence was the answer. My head spun. It wasn't about the money. Not just. It was about image. Control. Legacy. If Dad's final note came out, it would reveal everything, including the truth about the will and the marriage and the daughter he tried to protect but failed. You should leave, Gavin said, before this gets worse. I stared. It's already worse. I walked out the front entrance, like I belonged there. Didn't stop until I reached the parking garage. Sat behind the wheel, hands shaking. Then I saw it. A black Escalade. Tinted windows. Parked 3 spots behind mine. Engine off. I waited. It didn't move. I turned the ignition. Drove past slowly. Glanced at the driver. Glasses. Thin lips. Unfamiliar. But he looked up and smiled. He'd been watching me the whole time. The highway was dark. Only the dash lights and my own breath visible. I was supposed to be safe, but safety was a lie. Every 100 feet, I checked the rear view. Black Escalade gone. I exhaled like wind leaving a hollow cave. I whispered into the night. A secret only stays buried until someone refuses to accept it. My thumb hovered over the burner phone. One contact blinked. Lisa _. I hadn't heard from her since last night. One tap. Ring. No answer. Just voicemail. I left a message with calm I didn't feel. If you want immunity and real protection, meet me at the Overlook. No police, no drama. I hung up and drove harder. The Overlook was a concrete cliff edge known for silent horizons. The ocean's roar was the only truth there. 7 minutes late. No Lisa. No headlights. Just wind and waves. Then the headlights cut through the fog. Lisa in silver sedan. I caught the way she tightened her grip on the wheel before stepping out. Thank you for coming, she said, voice low, eyes darting. Cut. I eased closer, kept my voice soft. You called me. She swallowed, looked at the valley below. I didn't have a choice. Her breath quaked. They told me what would happen if I talked. I nodded. I know your name came up on access logs. You were at the hospital network too. She went pale. I was there the day your dad passed. I ran files like they told me, but I never saw the addendum until Gavin showed it to me. She pulled out a small recorder. I saved everything. Audio. Conversations. Dominic, Gavin, my mother. I took a step back, heart in my throat. She hit play. Isabella's voice. Clear. Sharp. Too calm. If she won't sign, she needs leverage. Find anything that can blackmail her or make her hesitate. Then silence. My skin crawled. Where'd you get this? I asked. Lisa's hand shook. Their server. I downloaded it before they could wipe it. I exhaled. One thin breath. Then, who else knows about this recording? Lisa closed her eyes. Only me. I nodded. Good. We stayed quiet, letting the ocean beat its drum against the rocks below. I asked her, is there anything else? She slid a USB toward me. On it, bank routing forms, shell account data, offshore transfers. My stomach flipped. Cayman accounts, she said. 2 of them, signed by Dominic, authorized by Gavin. One under his name, the other under someone else. She hesitated. Mom's. I didn't speak, because that was worse than I expected. No wonder she was trying to access Dad's cloud drive. But that wasn't all. I plugged in the USB. Folder 1, bank transfers. Folder 2, a single file labeled Emergency Clause, Estate Lock. I opened it. Screenshot of a scanned page from Dad's will. Only this page wasn't supposed to exist in the public probate records. Clause 14, subsection E. In the event of contested amendments, if falsified documentation is proven, entirety of the estate shall transfer to the designated trust, under sole beneficiary protection, with punitive restitution sought from perpetrators. That meant, if I proved fraud, they lost everything. Everything. Even Dominic. My breath hitched. That's the fail-safe, I said. Lisa gulped. But no judge will allow it without proof. And you've already been recorded as the one who refuses to cooperate. I checked my phone. 1 missed call. No number. A text immediately after. We know you're with Lisa. Stop digging. No signature. Just threat. I closed the file, then looked at her. We need to bring this to Jonathan. Right now. She hesitated, fear in her eyes. They'll know. Too late, I said. They already do. I dialed Jonathan from the burner. 3 rings. Then his voice, gravelly exhausted. You have the claws, he said before I even spoke. How'd you? No time. His tone clipped. Emergency prosecutor. I can file this as tampering and fraud, but they'll come after you. I swallowed. I know. He paused. Meet me at the courthouse. In 30. I ended the call. Engine on. Fog pressed against the windshield, so heavy it looked like smoke. The overlook was empty. Lisa's sedan stood alone. I turned to thank her, but she wasn't there. No door open. No footprints. Just the car. And the engine still warm. My heart sank. I stepped out. Wind slapped my face. I walked around the car. Nothing. No Lisa. No message. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. Message. She made a choice. So have we. Attached a photo. Me. From behind. Standing at the overlook. No cámara visible. No trace of who took it. Only one implication. I wasn't alone. Not ever. I unlocked the USB again and found one more hidden file. Last modified 6 minutes ago. Name, Directive 0. I opened it. 1 line of text. Terminate resistance. Execute clause reversal. Secure assets. And beneath it, a timestamp, counting down. I stared until my heart thudded in silence. There was no turning back. They wanted a war. Not negotiation. Not leverage. War. The courthouse steps were cold beneath my boots. Dawn was still a rumor. Fog clung to the pillars like secrets no one wanted to admit. I didn't look back. Not once. The metal detector beeped at the entrance. Security didn't recognize me, but my name was now public record, thanks to Dominic's own threats. He thought scaring me would make me fold. Funny, fear was never my weakness. I walked in like I owned every second of it. Inside, Jonathan was waiting, eyes sharp, suit creased like he'd been sleeping in it. No time to waste, he said, voice gravel but steady. We passed through the lobby, cameras blinking like a countdown. Remember, he whispered, truth is the only weapon they can't claim is forged. I nodded, because my father's last note wasn't a threat. It was a shield, and I intended to use it. The judge's chambers were silent, too silent. A wooden desk, high-back chair, and 2 seats opposite, reserved for Isabella and Dominic. They sat there, faces pale but posture rigid, like statues crafted to project confidence long after confidence died. Isabella didn't look at me. Dominic did. His eyes were too sharp, too hungry, like a shark that realized the tide had changed. The bailiff called the hearing to order. Evidence was stacked on the table in neat folders. Bank transfers, offshore accounts, recorded audio, metadata logs, and the one thing no one could deny, Dad's emergency clause. Clause 14E. Entirety of estate shall transfer to the designated trust under sole beneficiary protection, with punitive restitution from perpetrators. Punitive. The word hit the room like a hammer. I watched Dominic's jaw tighten. He leaned toward Gavin's lawyer, someone polished, too confident, too sure this would be swept under like every secret they'd whispered in dimly lit hallways. Jonathan stood. Your Honor, he began, voice calm but unyielding. We present incontrovertible proof of document forgery, fraudulent account access, and coercive intent. He slid the audio clip across the desk. Isabella's voice filled the room again, warm but chilling. If she won't sign, we make her. You said she's alone, make her feel it. The judge paused, not a long pause, but long enough to feel like every veil in the room had torn. I watched Isabella grip her purse. Her knuckles turned white. Dominic swallowed, eyes darting, calculating, because the clause didn't just void their claim. It also opened the door for criminal restitution. Not just civil. Criminal. Fraud. Identity theft. Conspiracy. The room went quiet. Then the judge spoke. Not loudly. Just enough. This court finds the evidence compelling. Not only is the forged addendum invalid, but punitive damages are warranted. Charges will be referred to the appropriate prosecutor's office. The words landed soft but lethal. Isabella blinked, then her face drained. Dominic exhaled like wind through dead leaves. Justice wasn't loud here. It was certain. Outside, cameras flashed. Reporters murmured like bees at a hive. I stepped down the steps, Jonathan beside me, both of us a shield and a sword. A reporter shouted a question. Marina, what about your family? I paused, because truth had turned bitter in my mouth. I said, family isn't defined by blood. It's defined by who protects your future when no one's watching. A flashbulb popped. I didn't flinch. Then someone else spoke. A new voice. Sweet, simple. You can't bury the truth with threats. It was Lisa. She emerged from the crowd, alive, breathing, unnamed no more. I walked toward her, toward solid ground. She met my gaze. No fear, no apology, just survival. We stood there, 2 women who refused to disappear. And then I looked beyond the press. beyond the noise, beyond the scars, still fresh in my chest, towards the horizon where fog met sky. I thought about what my father taught me. Truth, he once said, is a sword you have to wield with both hands, because sometimes one hand isn't enough. I felt tension drain out of me like air released from a torn balloon. Not all wounds close, but some can finally stop bleeding. Days later, the estate was in trust. My name was the sole beneficiary. Dominic and Isabella faced restitution orders, probation, and ordered attendance in financial crimes programs. Not exile, not imprisonment, but consequences. Real ones, the kind that force you to look inward, at what you've lost, and what you've become. I walked into Dad's old condo and turned on the lights. They flickered, like a heartbeat asserting its existence. Empty rooms, clean walls, echoes of coffee mornings and late-night coding sessions. I breathed in. The scent was memory, not pain. Later, I donated part of the trust to a foundation for victims of identity theft and financial manipulation, people whose lives were shattered by deceit disguised as family obligation. Someone once said, "Justice is not vengeance. Justice is restoration." I finally understood what that meant. It wasn't revenge. It was reparation. It was clarity. It was the sound of locks clicking shut on a door that would never open again. I kept the final message from Dominic. No insult. No threat. Just one line. "We know you're with Lisa. Stop digging." I saved it in a folder labeled Legacy. Not hate. History. Because what we carry isn't always what we want, but it's always what we choose to keep. I stepped onto the balcony at sunset. Sky split between gold and violet. The wind whispered, "Courage is not absence of fear, it's mastery of it." I breathed deep and whispered back, "I choose peace." Behind me, the condo stood solid, not because it was mine, but because I held the truth. And no one, not blood, not law, not fear, could take that away.